my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Man Cave. Almost forgot my microphone again. You'd think I'd learn, wouldn't you? Sue just got done lowering my ears a minute ago, so it feels like a lot lighter up there now. A lot of people say I'm light in the head anyway. I made a note there in the comments that before we went live that there will be no vlog tomorrow, and the reason is that a good friend, Dick Hadfield, passed away. He was a veteran, and he was in the veterans home now for the last about 7 years, and he was a banjo player. You've heard him on my channel a number of times. Songs like Remington Ride on the banjo. Those were all played after he had suffered a major stroke. He was a pretty good, solid banjo player before the stroke. And then after the stroke, you could tell, compared to the way he used to play, there were some issues. But he hung in there and kept going for a long time, and actually got a little better after the stroke. But unfortunately, after about 7 years in the veterans home there, he has finally passed away, and tomorrow is his funeral, and so I will be attending that tomorrow, and I will not be able to have the vlog tomorrow. Moving on. Boy, lately, the last several nights, I'm waking up yelling out in pain. I mean, I wake up and I'm just yelling. I'm just going, ow, ow, ow. And I wake up and it's either my hands or it's my back and my spines or my feet. I mean, it's from the base of my skull all the way down. It just ain't a good thing. But I think it's partly because I've been working so hard lately and so many long hours. I mean, just about every day is 10, 12 hours standing on my feet, working on that darn splitter project, really. But it's finally finished. And I mean, I really don't think I have anything else that I have to do to it. I mean, it's done. And so this afternoon, in fact, almost the moment we're done here, I'll be putting on the heavy coat, going outside and hooking up the tractor and the trailer and going back and hauling in a bunch of logs that I cut yesterday. You're going to get to see that video here in a moment. And then I'm planning to try to split them with the excavator splitter that I made, and you'll see that in the next vlog, which will probably be, I guess, Thursday then, because tomorrow is Wednesday. We won't have the vlog tomorrow. But you'll see that splitter in action on Thursday, assuming that there is any action to film. I'm sure hoping there's some action. So anyway, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you too that yesterday, I mean, the temperatures were pretty cold over the last 4 or 5 days. Well, actually, since Thanksgiving, it's been, bordering around 35 degrees in that neighborhood, or just below freezing, right around there. Well, last night it finally got cold, and it was down to 15 degrees last night. If you double that and made it 30, you're still 2 degrees below freezing. So, I mean, that's really cold when you're at 15 degrees. But anyway, here's a look at the Firewood video that this was, I did this right after the vlog yesterday. Well, my friends, it's 3:27. I don't know what time the vlog finished on Monday. I think it was about 1:30. So it's been about 2 hours since we ended the vlog. Now, of course, I had to get all my equipment gathered up. I had to drive up here, which took about 10 minutes, and hook up this trailer and all that kind of good stuff. And you can see what I've sawn up here. Now, let me show you something. This might be the very best oak log I've ever sawn in my life. I'm seriously telling you, this thing is nice. It's a red oak. There don't seem to be a blemish in it. It's almost like a veneer tree.
It's got a little blemish down here, a little tiny blemish, but that won't even be in the boards when you saw the boards out. I cut it at 10-foot length. What I'm going to do now is over the next day or so, I'm going to haul all this out of here. And of course, I'm going to try to get this sawmill log to the sawmill because it's a nice log. It's too nice to cut up for firewood. I cut up everything that was knotty above it. But this part here has almost no knots in it. And you can see there, you could actually get a short log out of that, which would be, you could get a 5 to 6 footer out of that yet. But that raised back up after I cut this off. I knew it would. That big lump of roots on the back of it there is very heavy. So anyway, this was a lot of work. I can't even stress to you how many vines and how unlevel this is. Like there's a hole right there in the ground. This is mounds of dirt and just unlevel everywhere, rocks under your feet, all these vines. Most of these vines and things, this whole thing was just covered in it, and I had to saw my way through it to get through it. I can barely get through it now. And it's just unlevel when you're walking on it. Your feet are stepping on all this stuff, and it's really hard to saw. I really can't express how tough it is. You know, if this was out in that open area out there, in a relatively flat area, this would be a 5-minute job for me. I mean, well, a little more than that, maybe an hour. I could have done the whole thing in an hour easy. But as it was, it took a while because there's so many vines and so many tree limbs grabbing on you and pulling on the saw and poking on the saw and poking on you. It's unbelievable how complicated it is. But anyway, I got quite a bit of wood sawn up here. This is more than it probably looks like because, well, that big log is 2 foot in diameter all the way down. And some of these are bigger than 2 foot up through here where it forked off and everything. So these are big logs, and they're heavy. Man, red oak is heavy. My idea is, JR keeps saying he wants to do some real work with his team of horses, his big Clydesdales. Well, there's a good day's work for him right there. So, snatching this log out and dragging it back to the house. Now, I don't know if they're up to that yet or not, but that would be a great log for them to skid. And it would make a great video, a great collaboration between our two channels. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if that'll work out or if I'll just come up here with the bobcat and pick it up and carry it back. Either way, we'll get it back. So here's the follow-up to the video. You can see the small stack I have there and the small stack here, or pile. And it's completely full. So it holds a lot of wood. Just about, well, if it was empty, I could probably put that whole stack in there. And that'll last about 12 hours or a little more, maybe. About 12 hours. It depends how cold it is. If it's real cold, that'll only last 5 or 6 hours. It's crazy. But that's all I got on this first trip. You know, I was pretty exhausted from cutting it, so I don't usually haul that much on the first, trip because I've been cutting the firewood, and cutting it takes a lot out of you. But anyway, there's enough there to make it through tomorrow and even tomorrow evening probably. And then, I can haul it the next day, or I can haul it tomorrow even, as far as that goes. But that way I just doing one thing at a time, because it'll kill you. I'm seriously telling you, there's a lot of work there.
Yeah, you really just can only imagine how much work there is. It's a lot of work. And I know you're thinking, well, you're just stupid, that's all. And I guess I am. I guess I just am. I don't know why I do it. I just do it. But I'm seriously telling you, that's some heavy wood too. That red oak, it's a dense wood. It's heavy. It's solid. That saw log, if my homemade sawmill can get through it, and I think it can, that should be some beautiful wood. It really should be some of the best oak lumber I've ever sawn. I don't think there's going to be any knots in it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to be clear stuff. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, and JR did get back to me and said he doesn't think that that's a good log to try to skid with his horses. First of all, that's a really heavy log. You just don't have a clue how heavy that is unless you've... I mean, just the firewood pieces are, 2 foot around, are so heavy. I can't pick them up. I mean, they're heavy, heavy. It's really hard to explain. They're way more dense than you think they are. And a log that long, I'm going to say, I'm going out on a limb, but I'm going to say that's 1.5 tons, 3,000 pounds is what I'm going to say that is. It's probably every bit of that log. I could be all wet. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's in that neighborhood. It's darn heavy. Well, anyway, you saw that location there, and those of you who keep all this in your brain and retain everything, if you remember a few days back, I showed the video of the 3 little bucks that walked out in front of me in that clearing there. That's the same clearing. Right there next to that tree. That's what gave me my mind to go up there and cut that up, because I could see that land there from my tree stand. And I thought, well, that's a good first log for this year. And, it was a blowdown. I didn't cut that down. It was a blowdown. I'm really surprised the loggers didn't take that tree when they logged my farm. I guess they just missed it, because that's a big log. And it's one of the few that's still on the farm that's that big. And, of course, wouldn't you know, the wind blew it down. So it was going to go to waste if I didn't saw it up. Anyway, by the way, on those other big round pieces, I can't pick them up. So I'm going to take the Bobcat and the big splitter and go up there and bust those into pieces. And as I split them, I can put them up on top of the trailer. So I don't even have to touch those by hand. But I'm going to go up there this afternoon and pick up what I can pick up by hand and throw them in the trailer and bring that back here this afternoon. And then I'll use the excavator splitter that I made to split those into smaller pieces. So anyway, whatever I can manage to pick up and put in the trailer, then we'll use the excavator splitter that I made to at least bust them in half or something like that, so that they're easier to throw into the fire, into the furnace. Because the furnace, it's up fairly high and they're pretty heavy and hard, and it's through a hole, and it's hard to manipulate those logs when they're full and heavy. It's hard to get them in there. So busting them in half is a real good thing, or bust them in thirds or fourths. Well, anyway, here's the video on the log splitter, the current status.
Well, it's 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, and you can probably see here that I've added on right here. I had to make this slot stopped right here. And this kept traveling. It travels all the way to this spot right here. So what happened was I just measured it off the wrong side of this. I measured 24 from here to here, which is right. And then I measured 24 from here to here, which is wrong. I should have measured it from here. So fortunately, it's just long enough. So it's fine the way it is. But it was a dumb luck accident for me in terms of that it actually worked out. So this does not crash into this, but it does stop real close to this. Perfectly okay, absolutely 100% okay. In fact, I could look at it as an advantage that if I have one that doesn't split when I get right here, well, I can, flip it over and put the log in this spot and split it all the way. So if that happens, that'll take care of it. So it's kind of an advantage in one regard. It's not uniform, it's not symmetric, but it doesn't have to be. Nobody cares, it's just splitting wood, So I'm fine with it. I'm glad I found that out before I got it out there and had it all hooked up and trying to split wood with it. So now it's time to connect that to that. And so that's my next challenge. Well, this has been a busy morning. I started at 8 o'clock. It's now 10:30. And I had to do a lot of things. I had to fix that slot. You know, I told you that this thing here had gone into this slot and cut it. Well, I added on more slot all the way over to this, and I put in angle iron to fill in there. And same way on this side. So I got the piece of angle iron in there. So there's a slot all the way to this now. So now it stops at right at this stop here. The blade actually stops right at the stop. On this side, it's about 6 inches to the stop. Originally, I thought I'd have 6 inches on both sides, and what happened was I just measured off the wrong edge of that blade, and that's why that was off. Not a big deal. I fixed it, and actually it's kind of a blessing in disguise, because this goes all the way to the stop. Therefore, if I have a log or some kind of wood that's really hard to split, and most of the time it'll split before it gets to the end, so that 6 inches isn't that big a deal. But sometimes it won't, and when it won't, well, this will go all the way to the end. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. So I can always get it to work that way. I've got the hose connections made, and I had to cut these bosses off this morning because I couldn't get a wrench on this. With the bosses gone, I had these bosses that stuck out here and to help protect the hoses, but you know, they just had to go. So I got rid of them, and now I can tighten the hoses up better. I got this connected. This, wouldn't you know, these two things were too close together at the top. At the bottom, they're the right spacing. But what happened when I welded them, this one here drew in quite a bit. So I took a 10-pound sledge and beat that over, and it was not easy. I had to hit it like 8 or 9 times to get it to move over. And I only moved it over 1/8 of an inch at the most. Trust me, those welds are good welds, because it didn't even phase it at all. So anyway, we're ready to go. It's ready to take this thing outside. It's, like I said, 10:30, so I eat lunch at 11. So I'm at least going to get it out of the shop so I can get the shop back in order, because this has been a long-term project, keeping the shop messed up. I'm just hoping nothing goes wrong. So if nothing goes wrong, we're going to be doing a lot of wood splitting. Well, there you have it, friends and neighbors. It's sitting outside the shop, ready to go. As far as I can tell, and I can't tell very far anymore, but as far as I can tell, that thing should be sound. It should split wood now. Boy, that was easy. And if you believe that, man, do I have some ground I want to sell you down there in the Okefenokee. It's unbelievable how hard this project was and how long it took. But I think it may be worth the wait. Maybe. It'll just be my luck. It'll break on the first log. But right now, it looks like a good outfit, and I hope it proves to be that way.
You have no idea how much I hope it proves to be that way. And I'll find out this afternoon. The reason I didn't go ahead and do it this morning and split a log this morning is because I didn't want to be in a bad mood on the vlog. And that's the truth. I thought, boy, if I try that now before the vlog and it doesn't work, I won't even be able to talk. So I'm hoping this afternoon it's going to be a pleasant experience. We'll see how that goes. Also, I meant to warn you that I did do some duplication in that video and duplicate explanations. I didn't realize it till I had put it all together, and it was too late to change it. So sorry about that. But anyway, Wayne Blitz looks like he was the first one in there, and he says hello. And Ronald Todd's there. Rod Wentler says, good morning, Jerry. It looks like you are starting to see morning temps in the teens. You got that right. Boy, it was flat cold here this morning. Yeah, when it gets down in the teens, I'm burning wood. I mean, a lot of wood. They always said that that stove will hold fire for 24 hours. That's what in a normal house it would. I don't have any doubt about it at all. But at this house, 12 hours is about the most you're going to get, and when it's down in the teens, it's more like 6 to 8 hours max. That's what you get out of a full load. It's crazy, just nuts. Bill Rhodes, good afternoon, and he says he likes my design of my log splitter. Well, thank you. He said, don't forget the thumbs up also. And then there's my reminder again that we will not have a vlog tomorrow because of the funeral for Dick Hatfield. And several of you have expressed sorrow for that, and I appreciate it. David Tharp, hi folks, have to watch later. I'm at the dentist office now and waiting to see him. Well, I don't envy you, David. Good luck with that. Bill Webb says good afternoon and condolences there. Thank you. Dirk 10 half says, too cool. I mean everything. Yeah, and the temperature especially. And there's B.H. Ringer from Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia was a beautiful place. I enjoyed being up there. Bill Mumbo, Jerry, it's important to pay your respects to your friend. Yes, it is. And yeah, I'm a little bit ashamed of myself that I didn't go see him more when he was in the nursing home. And it's such a depressing place. I don't know. I'm not good with that kind of thing. I'm not a good caregiver. I'm not. I'm overly sympathetic. I'm overly emotional about it. And I don't know. I'm just not good at it. It's not a good thing for me. Let's see. James Copy says, thinking about building a heat exchanger fireplace insert for heating. What do you think? Well, I think it's a good idea. If you're going to use a fireplace, in my opinion, a fireplace insert is the way to go. Because otherwise your heat just goes right out the flue. Fireplaces are just not very efficient at all. I mean, if you're in a situation, lost out in the woods, well, a fireplace, I mean, like if you come upon an old cabin and it's got a fireplace, well, that's way better than being out exposed. But when you're talking about a modern house and modern heating and all that, fireplaces are just not the thing. So putting in an insert of some sort to block it and keep, to kind of shut that flue down, and so that the heat is really being blown into the room, it's certainly a good thing, a heat exchanger type deal. Gary Hayden says, Jerry, I saw an old video dated 1977 with Jimmy Goodrow playing mandolin with a saddle that looked like your deer antler saddles. Well, Gary, I don't think that could be possible because I don't think I started building them at all. I don't think. I might have. I don't know. I think I made some for myself by that time, but I didn't start selling them to the public till at least 83 or 82, 83, somewhere in there. So it couldn't have been one of mine at that time, I don't think. Bill Rhodes, Jerry, I know how much work that is because I've done it. Yeah, if you've done it, you kind of know. But I'll tell you where the real work comes in for me. Lots of people think it's the hauling the wood and lifting the wood and, putting it in the trailer and all that. And that's work, no question about it. But for me, that's not near the work as the sawing. You would think, well, sawing ain't that tough. You just stand there and, well, if you can just do that, it isn't too bad. But under the conditions I have to saw in, we're always on a hillside. Well, in this case, it wasn't too much of a hillside, but it was still really on really rough ground. It was just, you couldn't see it. The video never shows it. It's unlevel ground right there, really bad. I mean, like you take one step and you could fall over. It's that unlevel. And then the thick vines are just everywhere, and they're grabbing you, and there's briars that are grabbing your clothes and pulling on you at every direction, and it's miserable conditions. That's what's really hard about it. So the sawing of the wood is way harder. And once you get it sawn, and by the way, the sawing of the wood is where I sweat through my shirt. I mean, I'll sometimes, and even in the 15-degree weather, I'm not making this up. I've actually taken it all the way down to where I'm just wearing a flannel shirt in 15-degree weather, and I'm sweating through the shirt. That's how hard the sawing is. Now, when I start to load it, then I got to put my coat back on because I get cold when I'm loading. But that sawing is hard work, especially when you got a big saw like that. That's, I don't know what that saw weighs. It probably weighs 20 pounds. And it's just hard work. That's all there is to it. Bill Rhodes says, Jerry, have you ever heard of Roy Queen? Well, yes, I definitely have. I know the name for sure. I know at one time he had a radio show in Missouri, and I know he was good friends with my Uncle Don Brown, and in fact, I know he had him on his radio program and featured him on his radio program. But I think Roy Queen was also a musician in his own right, but I don't know anything about it. I never met the man. I just remember the name because of my Uncle Don Brown. So I don't really know much about him. Hugh O'Connor, do you realize the actual power of a horse is approximately 15 horsepower? Well, I've kind of heard that it's more. I didn't know it was 15. I thought it was more like 2 or 3. But yeah, especially you get into those big Clydesdales, those babies are some powerful horses right there. JR is building a tongue to hook up a team of horses. He's built a tongue is the pole that goes between the horses that hooks to the cart, and I don't think he's building it strong enough for those 2 horses. That's what I'm trying to tell him. He's using a piece of pipe that's about this big, but it's it's a standard thin wall pipe. It's not the thick wall pipe, and he had to drill a hole down through it. Well, that hole's a weak point, and those big horses, if they're turning, and if that cart is in a stressed spot, like maybe the wheels are in the mud or something, that pole's breaking off. Those horses are some strong. Yeah, they're strong. That's all I can tell you. I don't know how many horsepower. I don't know if there's 15, but you'll think it's 100 horsepower if you get behind those things and they're pulling on you. Gary Hayden, Jerry, a big buck recently totaled my Explorer. I replaced it with a Jeep with heated seats and steering wheel. My first, and it's a treat for my old bones, especially my arthritic hands. Well, sorry to hear about the Explorer, but those heated seats and heated steering wheels are great, and I've got that in my car. And yeah, I don't need a lot of heat. In fact, I'm pretty good with the cold, but when it's real cold out, those heated seats and that heated steering wheel, my hands get cold real easy. So that, especially the heated steering wheel for me, is the thing I like a lot. That steering wheel is really cool. Michael Wagner says, sorry to hear about Mr. Hatfield. Yep, well, thank you. Clyde Lewis says, the splitter looks excellent. Well, I hope so. And Bill Rhodes says he's sorry about the friend. Thank you. Daniel Lipsy, hi, Jerry. I'm not trying to be smart, Alec, but red oak is listed at 44 cubic foot, allowing for green wood. Let's call it 50 pounds per cubic foot. A 24 by 8 foot log would approximately be 1,200. Well, this is a 10.5 foot log. And I think you're light on your 1250. Honestly, I do. I think you're light. I think there's more cubic feet in that 24 by 8 foot log than you're thinking. So, that's a heavy log. I'm just telling you. And it might only be 2,000 pounds, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's not 3. I guarantee, I'll bet you, I'd almost bet $1,000 it's 2,000 pounds. I'd bet on that one. That's some heavy wood. It depends on how green it is. See, now you may be talking about dry wood, but green wood, like this is, and it's not real green. I mean, it's been blown down for 6 months, but it doesn't dry when it blows down. A tree like that, when it falls down in the forest and you're sawing it up, it's still green. It's what you call a green tree. My furnace doesn't care. It'll burn anything you throw in there. But anyway, a damp log like that, I'll bet you anything that's 2,000 pounds on that log. And in fact, I'd bet $10,000 on that one. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to win on that one. In fact, I'm 99.9% sure I'm going to win on that one. That's a heavy log. Bill, you couldn't move it if your life depended on it with your own weight. That's why JR knows he can't pull it with his horses either. And those horses, now they're strong. Those 2 big Clydesdales. Bill Webb, Ramona is the caregiver in our family. My mother wasn't that way, so I didn't grow up that way. Well, yeah, and my family was kind of like that too. We weren't a real huggy, loving kind of family either. We didn't do a lot of hugging and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, but yeah, I'm not a good caregiver. That's not my thing. I don't know why. I'm not. Wavy Gravy. This past Saturday was Mark Twain's birthday. This is one of my favorite quotes from him. Politicians and diapers must be changed often and for the same reason. Boy, I agree with that one. I've heard that before. That's a great quote. It really is. It's one that we should say more often. And I'm a firm believer that politicians, every one of them, should have term limits. They shouldn't. I don't think any of them should be in office more than about 5 years, 6 years. And I know some people, the thing is that they always say is, well, you have to have them in there longer than that for conformity, uniform, and, and keeping things flowing and all this. And I'm saying, no, if you leave them in there that long, you've got corruption. That's all you got. You just got corruption. Because the longer they're in there, the more connections they make and the more money that goes under the table. That's all that amounts to. In a perfect world, you would be right. The longer they're in there, it would be better. But in this world, that ain't right. Bill Rhodes says, I met your Uncle Don at Roy Queen's house when I was a boy. Well, isn't that cool? That's pretty cool. Yeah, I knew of Roy Queen, and I've heard about him a lot. I just never did ever meet him as far as I can remember. At least I don't think I ever did. Let's see. Bill says he didn't know he was my uncle at the time. Well, it's because you didn't know about me at the time. Because when you met him back then, that was a long time ago. I was probably just a little bitty kid. Probably. I don't know. Maybe 10 years old or something. The Outboard Tinkerer says, hi, Jerry. Yes, redwood so heavy, and years ago found out it's very hard to carve for a beginner making. Yeah, well, this is, to be clear, this is red oak. Redwood is another species of tree, but I don't know if we're just confusing words there or if you're really talking about a redwood. A redwood tree, I don't know anything about redwood trees, unfortunately. They don't grow in this area at all, but red oak is one heavy wood. It's dense and heavy. Oh, he does. The next line, he says he meant red oak. Well, good. If that's what you're talking about, yeah, it's for sure a very heavy wood. I don't know. I don't know if it's heavier than white oak. I would say it's very close one way or the other. I mean, one could be heavier than the other. They could be the same. I really don't know, but I do know oak is heavy. I've told this before, but there's been people more than once. In fact, one guy brought me his oak electric guitar that he built, and he was so proud of it. How and it looked okay. It was a decent job. It wasn't like anything great. It was just a decent job, but it was an oak electric solid body guitar. I'm telling you, that thing was so heavy. It was ridiculous. And that was a dry piece of wood. So, I mean, and this was just, it was just ridiculously heavy. And I thought, man, there's no way. You'd have to pay me double time to play that thing because it was just crazy heavy. So can you imagine? That was just a little piece of wood. Can you imagine how heavy that log is? I'd bet $10,000 it's over 2,000 pounds. Anybody wants to take me up on it, I'll bet it. So you might be able to make some quick money. Let's see. Bill Rhodes says, I think I was about 13 or 14. Met him. Okay. Met him several times. I went to school with Roy Queen's son. Okay. That's cool. Outboard Tinker, ridiculous to hand carve. LOL. But I did it. Papa Tom, complete knee replacement 12 days ago. Greater appreciation for good health. Took so much for granted. Wow. Well, sorry to hear it, but I hope everything is going well. Bill Rhodes says, in the radio station was called KWRE. That's exactly right. Now that you say it, I couldn't think of, I knew it had a KW something in it, but KWRE is right. Yeah. It's here in Warrenton, Missouri, and that's where I thought it was. I knew it started with a W. Again, you know me and names. I couldn't think of it. I knew Warrenton, Missouri is where it is. Yep. It was Don was a big deal back then, at least in the Missouri area. I mean, he for sure was. If you knew anything about bluegrass music, you knew Don Brown back in those days. In the 50s, 60s, all that. And like I said, John Hartford got his start with Don Brown and the Ozark Mountain Trio. It was originally Don Brown, John Hartford, and I can see his face. I know who he is. I can't think of his name. I want to say Norm. I don't know. I can't think of the other fella's name now. Don Brown, John Hartford. I hate it when I do that. I know his name. I just can't call it right now. Well, anyway, guys, I'm going to let that be it. I'm anxious to go out there and get some logs hauled in, mainly because I need some hauled in, and otherwise we're going to freeze. And I'm also anxious to try out that splitter. I will definitely give you video of that splitter doing whatever it's going to do. I'll give you that video on Thursday for sure. We'll see you then. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on Thursday.